Hey guys, so I'm going to do a couple of videos. One's probably going to be longer than the ones that I'm about to do here, so I want to get these two short ones out of the way before I do that big long one, if you will. And it's right here, this is the big long one, so we'll get into that. And probably in the third video, hopefully without any interruptions. But the first one I want to bring up is a fan tweeted, or basically tweeted out, and I guess they tweeted this to Alex, just Alex, formerly Deluxe Man, and others of the wrestling community on Twitter and Facebook and all that. And that is, they made basically a little chart here, and you'll probably see it in the thumbnail. But it's a comparison between AEW and WCW. Yeah, someone actually made a comparison here, basically comparing the similarities to both companies, and we can only speculate and wonder why they went this route, why they made this comparison. Now, Alex did bring up the fact that it is accurate because there are similarities here. The only question basically in the long run is, what will the outcome be? Will the outcome also be identical, or will the outcome be different? Like, will AEW be able to avoid what WCW went through? But as I say in a lot of my videos, we'll have to see, because we don't know what the future holds. I mean, a lot of people are already speculating, like I mentioned in one video, that basically AEW is not going to be around for much longer. A lot of people look at AEW going to TBS as a downgrade, seeing as though TBS, in their opinion, is just home to reruns. Like American Dad and Family Guy, not realizing that they have new content on there, like Go Big Show and a few other things as well, like the NCAA tournament at times, or the MLB playoffs. You know, they're going off of the fact that most of the content there is reruns. Now, that is true, but that doesn't mean it's a bad thing for AEW. As a matter of fact, as a lot of people have pointed out, TBS is seen in more homes nationally and worldwide than TNT, believe it or not, because TNT, when it comes to certain cable providers, are part of certain packages you would have to add on to your current cable bill, if you will. Cable bill, cable system, if you will, just to get access to it. But in the case of TBS, you know, mostly everybody's got that right off the bat with the basic cable package. But let's take a look at the comparisons here that this person made between AEW and WCW. The first comparison they made is this. With AEW, it was founded by a billionaire who owns a sports team, Jacksonville Jaguars, that being Tony Khan and his dad, but mostly Tony Khan. The comparison they made to that with WCW is WCW was bought by a billionaire who owned a sports team, the Atlanta Braves. So the similarity is both were current owners of sports teams at the time when they got their companies. You know, Tony Khan for Jacksonville Jaguars, you know, Ted Turner for the Atlanta Braves. The difference, though, is Ted Turner bought WCW from the NWA, from the Jim Crockett Promotions. He bought that portion of the wrestling conglomerate, if you will, of JCP, and made it into WCW. Basically he purchased Jim Crockett Promotions and turned it into WCW, basically taking the name of the Saturday night program, which was World Championship Wrestling, and applying that to, you know, it being the name of the wrestling organization, period. Still having ties to the National Wrestling Alliance until about late 93, early 94. And that was about it. That was the end of that, if you will. But yeah, the difference is Ted Turner bought his promotion from somebody else. Tony Khan founded his with the help of, you know, the elite, if you will, and other backers. The other similarity is signed a lot of former WWE wrestlers, and that is basically one of the first identical similarities. That both have signed a lot of WWE wrestlers. The problem though, and the difference though, is WCW would put focus on these athletes, on these WWE stars that they would acquire. Eric Bischoff would put focus on Hulk Hogan. He would put focus on Randy Savage. He would put focus on Hall and Nash. Excuse me. You know, he would put focus on Bret Hart. He would put focus, believe it or not, on Bryan Adams. He would put focus on Ted DiBiase. You name it, he would put focus on that star to showcase the fact that, hey, look who we got and look who we're pushing. The same with Jeff Jarrett. Vince Russo, who was close friends with Jarrett at that time, pushed him, and Eric for a time was behind that, you know, as well. He was behind that as well. So basically, both men pushed Jarrett and gave him a lot of screen time. You know, so that's a big difference. That's a big difference between the two, because AEW, yeah, they'll sign some former WWE talent and they'll give them the spotlight here and there. But most of the time, the focus has been on their own talent, or talent that has not been given a global platform to perform on, if you will. A good example of this is the Varsity Blondes, Brian Pillman Jr. and Garrison. I think that's his name. Grant Garrison. I do apologize if I don't get the name wrong, but Garrison, if you will. Basically the Varsity Blondes. You know, Brian Pillman Jr., no doubt, probably would have gotten signed to NXT, you know, not that long ago, if AEW wasn't around. And same with Garrison. Garrison probably would have gotten the same thing. But because of the fact that Brian Pillman Jr. didn't get that opportunity before AEW came about, he is now part of AEW, and all because of the fact that AEW was willing to work with other promotions that Brian was a part of or affiliated with, like MLW. So with Pillman, you know, Pillman Jr. getting this global platform for the first time in quite some time period, you know, it's a godsend. Now I know people will say, well, wasn't he on Lucha Underground for a bit? Yeah, he was on Lucha Underground, there's no doubt. But he really came into prominence, not just through there, but through his association with MLW, his association with AAA, New Japan, and that's what got him noticed by AEW, and AEW was the first ones to come calling. So it's giving guys like him a platform, you know, to perform on. It's giving people like Sammy Guevara a platform to perform on. It's giving people like Filito del Sol, you know, a platform to perform on. Lee Johnson, a platform to perform on. You know, Penta and Phoenix, the Lucha Brothers, is giving them a platform to perform on. It's giving someone like QT Marshall, Brandon Cutler, you know, Baxter Stutter, if you will. You know, it's giving them a platform to perform on. That is what it's doing. That is what it's doing. And it's doing it more so than WCW ever did. I mean, yeah, WCW focused on the cruiserweights at times, and that was great. And they would focus on some unknowns, basically that made a name for themselves outside of the company. But guess when they would do that? They did that towards the end of the company's existence. They waited too long to do that, which is what caused them to go under. I mean, if you look at some of the WCW matches you can find on YouTube, from Worldwide to Thunder to Nitro to Saturday Night, you hear either Mike Tenay, you either hear Scott Hudson, Tony Schiavone, you hear them mentioning about someone like a Daniels or an AJ Styles saying, hey, these guys were great names on the independent circuit, and oh, they work currently for NWA Wildside, one of the big stars. You know, that's when, basically towards the end of that company's existence is when you would see them doing what AEW is doing currently. So that's the big difference, similar, I mean identical but big difference. Yes, it's identical and similar to, you know, both companies, you know, to both owners, you know, bringing in talent like that, if you will, bringing in talent from the WWE to fill out the roster. But the difference is WCW focused on that former talent more so than their own talent, and AEW is kind of, if not mostly, doing the opposite. You know, if you know what I mean. This is why, as much as we may not like it, this is why you have AEW Dark. This is why you have AEW Dark Elevation. Heck, this is why you have Rampage. You know, you're focusing on talent that you normally wouldn't that companies like WWE wouldn't even give the time and day to, even if they signed them. I mean, Jungle Boy, yeah. Excuse me, Jungle Boy, absolutely. Goes to WWE, NXT, main roster. He might be like a Matt Riddle. You know, he might get over with the fans. The only thing that would not get him over as much as, let's say, WWE would hope, is he wouldn't have his Tarzan Boy music. Guess who went out of the way to give him his Tarzan Boy music? You know what I'm saying? The point is, yes, there is identical similarity of both companies signing a lot of former WWE stars. The difference is one is focusing more on the original talent than the talent they signed from, you know, up north, while the other organization, you know, signed that talent from up north and focused more on it than their own talent. That's the difference. So you have similarity and identical. It's a similarity, identicalness there, but there is a difference between the two. Number two, has a television deal with TNT. In the case of WCW, had a television deal with TNT. And that is true. That is true. Both companies have been on TNT. But, here's the thing. WCW never considered, hey, TBS is on more platforms, you know, in households, more cable outlets around the country, if not the world, than TNT. Maybe we should put our main A show, our flagship show, Monday Nitro, maybe we should put that on TBS. That might get us more viewers. And guess what? Never once, as far as I remember, did they ever do it. Maybe once in a while because of preemptions on TNT, but never once. Never really once did I ever, you know, see them do it. They never once. Like I said, maybe once in a blue moon did they do it, but never once did they ever move Nitro from TNT to TBS. They would preempt it to either later on in the evening, or they would preempt it to the next night. And that was it. You wouldn't see, you know, Nitro, you wouldn't see them announcing Nitro being moved to TBS, you know, on its regular night, so people could still view it. And oh, by the way, not just the regular TNT audience, but an entirely new audience that only has TBS as part of the cable package, because that comes mostly, even to this day, with a lot of basic cable packages. You never saw them do that. But guess what AEW is getting ready to do? They're getting ready to do that with Rampage, the newest show, and the flagship show, Dynamite. They're getting ready to do that. And despite people coming out and saying that, oh, it's a bad sign, I should say, it's a bad sign, bad voodoo, if you will, with them doing this, it's not. It's a business strategy. Yes, from what I understand, the deal's still going to allow them to have, you know, quarterly shows on TNT, you know, starting next year. Kind of Clash of the Champion-like style. But the decision to go to TBS, you know, is because of the fact that they realize, you know, statistically, easy for me to say, statistically, you know, it gets more viewers. More eyes are on that channel than TNT because it's in the households of basically everybody who has basic cable. Don't, you know, really up it to that next level, if you will. So yeah, to me and everybody else, it is a smart move. You know, and when you really think about it, this could have been a move that if WCW would have made it, I think would have helped them survive. I think they would have been, you know, okay. I don't think the new people back then at Warner Media would have cut ties with them if they would have saw the viewership numbers going up for Nitro. If, you know, sometime before 99 or even 2000, Eric Bischoff went to Turner, went to whoever's in charge and says, hey, What if we move Nitro to TBS? How would you feel about that? I think it would have worked. I think it would have worked in their favor, no matter what people say. Yeah, I think back then they still were doing Atlanta Braves baseball, but not that much. You know, not that much. Atlanta Braves are getting ready to move to another network within the Atlanta region. Here, though, here basically, you know, they had here basically though, what I'm trying to say is they had an opportunity. Sorry for the pause there. I was trying to think about what I was going to say. But here, though, they had that opportunity back then. Even if they had to preempt once in a while, more viewers would be watching them. Why do you think Atlanta Braves baseball got so many views? Even if it was a team, even if the Atlanta Braves were not the home team of, let's say, somebody living in Oskaloosa, Kansas, like I did, or they weren't the home team of somebody living in New York City. Get what I'm saying? The point is, they got a lot of views for those games. They did. And to me, had WCW made that same decision that AEW is making, it probably would have survived. I think it probably would have had people viewing them, you know, more so than they had on TNT. And it'd be less preemptions, if you know what I mean. So yeah, the similarity is they both have a television deal on TNT. The difference, though, is one is making the smart decision to go to another Turner network that has more viewers, you know, connected to it because it's on most basic cable packages or part of most basic cable packages, while the other, still to this day, is part of specialty packages you have to add on down the line if you feel like it just to watch that network. So yeah, that is a similarity, but the difference is this newer company is making the smart decision to go somewhere else to get more viewers, while the other one didn't. And they could have done that whether they want to admit it or not. Number two, the next one I should say. The next similarity, and this is kind of true, wrestlers have creative control. Yes, wrestlers do have creative control. That is an identical similarity on both. There's no denying that. There is no denying that. And is there any kind of difference? Not really. I mean, this is the one identicalness that I think everybody could agree on. That basically they can agree on, if you will, on the fact that wrestlers are being given the opportunity to control what they say and what they do. Now, but if there is a difference, ladies and gentlemen, if there is a difference, the difference basically is the wrestlers back then in WCW, yeah, they had creative control, but basically what happened was Bischoff and even Russo gave way too much creative control and thus, by doing so, had way too many cooks in the kitchen. That's what happened. It's like, while I'm standing right here, visually, if this was a kitchen, from here to here, it'd be basically wall to wall to wall, crowded, basically wall to wall crowded, if you will, with so many cooks, you could barely get in. You could barely get to what you're doing. You can barely get to what you're working on. And that's what WCW did. Here, with the wrestlers having creative control, yeah, they have creative control, but they're not too many. But unlike WCW, there's not, too many cooks in the kitchen trying to get what they want. Basically, what Tony Khan has made sure is basically ensured a lot of people of when this is by bringing this, by doing this for the wrestlers, by giving them that creative control. What Tony Khan is basically doing is saying, hey, look, I'm giving you this creative control, but you got to leave your ego at the door. That's basically it. They got to leave their ego at the door. They can't have an ego when they step through the doors of the arena or the venue they're going to be in. They got to leave it at the door. They got to leave it at home, basically. And if they want to have, and I think part of the deal that we don't know about, but speculation on my part of that creative control that Tony Khan's giving the wrestlers is that the ones he brings in that have experience, like a Matt Hardy, like a Cody Rhodes. Well, Cody Rhodes was there from the beginning, but you get the idea. Like a Matt Hardy, a John Moxley, whatever. That they have to share that creativity with all the younger talent. They have to help them out by sharing a bit of experience with them. So that right there is a bit of a difference between the two. And to me, that favors AEW, because at least the guy in charge there is saying, look, I'm going to let you have this. You got to leave, but two things you got to do. Leave your ego at the door, and you got to share that creativeness that you have with the other talent, especially the young and up-and-coming talent. And that, to me, is the biggest difference between the two. Because WCW, like I said, it was like wall to wall. It's like you're trying to squeeze through a crowded area during Black Friday and you can barely walk. You know, that's what it's like. You're trying to do this, you can barely walk. You know, in a crowd during Black Friday. That's what it was like with WCW, apparently. So yeah, it is similar, you know, almost 90% of the time. The 10% difference is AEW, you know, is having their wrestlers leave their ego at the door and share that creativeness with the younger and upcoming talent to help them improve in the business. While WCW was more like wall-to-wall, squeeze, kind of do what you can to get through a crowd during Black Friday, too many cooks in the kitchen kind of deal. And the last one, very similar, but maybe slightly differently. Both owners were willing to throw around money to sign talent, to sign or get talent. In other words, for AEW, willing to throw around money to sign talent. WCW threw around money to get talent. Okay. Here's the big difference about that. Ted Turner, yeah, he made a mistake by giving Eric Bischoff a blank checkbook to basically play around with. You know, he basically gave him a blank checkbook to play around with, and that was a big mistake. That was a huge mistake on his part. I'm not denying that. I don't think anybody is. I don't even think Bischoff right now would deny that. But the thing is, Bischoff was on a mission. He was on a mission to put WWE out of business. He was on a mission to put ECW out of business until WCW was the only game in town, which unfortunately came back to bite him and thus resulted in WWE for a time being the only game in town. You know, so, you know, that's the big difference there, is the fact that he signed talent, like I said, you know, from WWE and elsewhere, WWE, ECW, just to try to stick it to WWE and ECW and put them out of business. So there is that similarity that both, you know, he, Eric Bischoff, threw Ted Turner's blank checkbook, and Tony Khan through his father's checkbook, if you will. Yeah, there is that similarity of them throwing around money. But the difference between the two is that Tony Khan, yeah, he's signing talent here and there because he wants to make a massive roster, but it's not because he wants to make a massive roster to put WWE out of business. No, that thought hasn't even crossed his mind as far as I know. He's making a massive roster because, like, let's say a CM Punk has come out and said many times since he's been there, you know, he's making a roster full of veterans that have made a name for themselves in WWE, as well as on the independents and internationally. He's signing them to not only compete in the ring, but to also help the younger talent. Like I mentioned with the creative control situation. When I said that part of the rule there is to leave your ego at the door and share that creative mindset with the younger talent to help them out, the same with him signing a bunch of talent to the company. It's not just to have that talent, whether it's former WWE talent, veteran talent, whatever you want to call it. It's not just, you know, to have them compete in the ring. It's to have them basically help the younger talent out. That's what he's doing. And for all we know, these contracts may not even be for that long. For all we know, Matt Hardy's contract could be up next year. And oh, guess what Matt Hardy could go back to? WWE, if he felt like it. Or go to Impact, if he felt like it. Or let's say John Moxley. Let's say John Moxley's contract's up in a couple of years. John Moxley, if he decides, hey, I want to go back to finish my career in WWE as Dean Ambrose, he can go back there. You know, Tony Khan is not trying to hold these guys hostage, when it comes to contracts, by signing them to him. What he's trying to do is sign these guys on so that inevitably when they do have the contracts come up and they decide, I want to go elsewhere, he won't have a problem with it because guess what? They would have served their purpose, they would have passed on that creative genius and mindset to the younger talent, and thus also by being in the ring with that talent, in both capacities, give them the experience they need to get better and become the stars they are meant to be in this business. That's what it is. That's the big difference. Because I want you to notice something too. A lot of the talent that does get signed, that does get declared is all elite at times, is the unknown talent. It's the unknown. Filito del Sol, he gets signed to a contract. In front of the world on Rampage, he gets signed to a contract. Eddie Kingston, who was part of Revolve at one point when they were partnered with WWE and NXT, Eddie Kingston gets a chance in AEW, biggest platform he's ever been on, and he becomes all elite. And that's a guy that obviously WWE right now wouldn't touch, if you know what I mean. And you look at all these other, and like Ali, and again, I go back to some of the other names, like Ali Johnson. Yeah, he would fit fine in NXT, or the original NXT as it once was, but AEW took a chance on him and said, we're bringing him in. Yeah, he came in as part of the Nightmare Factory, or the Nightmare Factory, if you will. That's fine, part of the Nightmare School, but guess what? Even if he decided not to be part of AEW and wanted to go to NXT, I don't think Cody would have had a problem. But Cody realized probably by experience, hey, Lee's not going to get a true opportunity up there unless Triple H takes a shining to him. I'm going to give him an opportunity right here and now, and he's made the most of it. Brock Anderson, Arn Anderson's son, has made the most of it. If you know what I mean. And again, these guys getting signed to deals, these younger guys, they're getting signed more to deals than the former WWE talent. And these deals, these younger talents, these unknowns are getting are probably a lot longer, basically these contracts are probably for a lot longer in years and for a lot more money than maybe even the established talent's getting right now, because again, that money Tony Khan's spending to get, let's say, a Jon Moxley, to get an Arn Anderson, to get a Paul White, to get a CM Punk, to get a Bryan Danielson, aka Daniel Bryan, all that money he's spending, guess what? They're not being paid as much as these younger guys. Because the only purpose for being there is not to have the spotlight, like I said earlier, shined on them, but and compete in the ring, but to help that younger talent. That's why they're there. That is why they are in AEW or coming to AEW. So they can share the creative genius with the talent. This is why a lot of people feel Wyndham Rotundo, formerly Bray Wyatt, should go to AEW. Because he could share his creative genius with the younger talent. With, talent like Abaddon. Like talent like the Dark Order, if you know what I mean. As well as compete in the ring and bring something different to that company. The fact of the matter is this. The fact is, yes, there is no doubt that money is being spent here in AEW by Tony Khan to get a bunch of talent. Former WWE talent, independent talent, international talent. There's no doubt. And yes, there's no doubting that a lot of money was thrown around by Bischoff, courtesy of Ted Turner's blank checkbook, to get former WWE talent, former ECW talent, international talent. There's no doubt about that. But again, the big difference is AEW is signing mostly the unknown, while at the same time, yes, they are signing that established talent that made a name for themselves, mostly in places like WWE, but they're doing it to help that younger talent, that unknown talent, get over and become bigger stars, bigger names in the business than what they are now. So that is the big difference. Yeah, the similarity is, yes, the similarity is money is being spent and thrown around, as some people would say. The difference, though, is the money is not being mostly spent on trying to put somebody out of business by taking most of the roster. The money is being spent in a way to help the future of this business get over with the crowd, by having the veterans there to help give them that experience through creativity and show them how they can do that with their own talents, with their own special abilities, and whatever else they can bring to the table. So to me, that is the big difference. That is a big difference right there. So yes, looking back at this chart here, looking back at this, yes, there are similarities. There are no doubt about that. But like I said, there are differences. And those differences, to me, are what is going to determine whether or not AEW avoids what WCW went through, or they go down the same path. But we'll have to see what the future holds for All Elite Wrestling. Right now, I think they're on a path to garner more momentum as the years go on. And the more momentum they garner, the more a company like WWE is going to have to start taking notice and realize, hey, maybe we should do what they're doing, and let's see if it works for us. But, again, in closing, are there similarities? Absolutely. But with those similarities, there are differences. And the differences right now favor AEW to basically stay around for quite some time, if not longer, and possibly avoid what WCW went through. But let me know what your thoughts are. Comment down below in the live chat. Comment down below in the comment section below. Let me know what your thoughts are in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video, and I will talk to you later. But again, let me know how you feel. Do you agree with a lot of these similarities? Do you see the differences that I pointed out? Let me know down below in the comments as well as in the live chat in the premiere. Again, I apologize if I stumbled on my words. I was trying to think about what I was going to say. That's what happens when you do something unscripted, if you will. When you're, basically, you have to come up with whatever comes to mind, just like I did that right there. You have to come up with whatever comes to your mind, on the fly, if you know what I mean. But let me know what your thoughts are. Again, comment down below, live chat during the premiere, and I will talk to you later. Like the video. I am out.